Hi, my name is Kendra Hamblin, and I'm a registered dietitian, certified personal trainer, certified women's health specialist, and I hold a certificate in culinary genomics. I'm also the owner of Decoding Nutrition Answers, and I welcome you, uniquely you, to lesson 1 of 4 that will help you dive into the world of genetics and begin to understand the relationship between your genes, your unique biochemistry, and how I use that information to give you personalized nutrition and lifestyle recommendations to prevent disease, improve overall health and well-being, and be the best you, uniquely you, that you can be. So let's dive in. Genes tell the story of you, the unique you, and only you. When we hear about genetic testing today, we can often think of discovering our ancestry or our family history, or even the possibility of contracting a certain disease. The BRCA1 gene is a very common genetic mutation that we often hear about that is specifically linked to breast cancer. Unfortunately, that leads people to have fear of genetic testing, thinking they will receive a bad diagnosis. But the majority of genetic evaluating, like what I do, focuses on variations in genes to see how they interact with each other, your diet, and lifestyle choices. When this info is translated to you, it can not only be used to prevent disease and optimize quality of life, but it can also be used to help manage disease and restore health. So what we're going to cover today is getting kind of the basics out of the way, the genetics 101. We're going to get to know some genetic terms, learn about SNPs or gene variations and why they are important, discover nutrigenetics and nutrigenomics and how they are used to promote health and wellness. Before we even start going into learning about genetics, one analogy I like to use to explain using genetics for health and wellness is to compare it to the different ways you could plan to take a trip somewhere that you've never been before. Imagine you wanted to take a pretty significant road trip. Let's say we wanted to drive to Orlando, Florida. What would be the most efficient way to plan that trip? One way we could be to use a compass, along with the general knowledge you have on how to get to your destination. Well, we know that Florida is south, so we can use our compass to point us south. Well, then what? Well, we could start to travel that way, but we may end up going the wrong way, hitting a road closure, or just getting completely lost and frustrated. Using a compass really isn't the best way to get us to Orlando, is it? Well, this is how most people probably feel when they are trying to improve their health, lose weight, improve their fitness, and they know their destination, but they have no idea how to get there. Or they may think they know how to get there, but they run into problems and get stuck and frustrated. Another way we could plan our trip is we could use an actual paper road map to get there. We can map out the route and know which highways and which roads we need to turn on to get there. This to me is like the equivalent of meeting with a dietitian or a health professional who can educate, guide, and assist you in ways to help you meet your health and wellness goals. This is a better way to get to your goals. You'll get some guidance and direction along the way. This is how I worked with clients for years. But is it really the most effective and efficient way to get to your goals? Is it the most effective and efficient way to get to our destination? What if there are road closures, heavy traffic, or an accident along the road? Using GPS system would tell us in real time about any traffic delays that may affect our trip. Wouldn't this be the most efficient way to get to Orlando? This is what it is like to use your DNA or your genetics to help you reach your goals. Using your genetics is like a GPS map that will guide you not only to where you need to go, but will tell you how to avoid any stumbling blocks that could delay you or stop you from getting to your destination. Using your genes as a real-time roadmap can help you get to your goals faster and more efficiently. So now that we know that, let's dive into learning a bit more about genetics. Genes essentially tell our body how to function and run. They tell the body which proteins to make, and those proteins keep your body running. They are instructions for building the parts of your body and doing the work that keeps you alive. Everything from carrying oxygen to digesting and metabolizing your food to how your body uses those nutrients from the food are all duties that are taken on by genes. They are responsible for all the processes that occur in your body. DNA is tightly wrapped into chromosomes, and without such packaging, your DNA molecules would be too long to fit inside cells. For example, if all the DNA molecules in a single human cell were unwound and placed end to end, they would stretch 6 feet. So where do you get your genes? Well, you get all your DNA or your genes from your parents. For each pair of their chromosomes, you get one chromosome from your mom and one from your dad. When the egg and the sperm cells come together, they create the full set of 46 chromosomes, or 23 pairs. So why aren't your genes exactly the same as your siblings? Well, like you, your parents each have 2 copies of their chromosomes, which they got from their parents. So when the sperm and the eggs are joined, pairs of chromosomes separate independently and sort themselves at random. You might get one chromosome in one pair from your mom, and your sister might get the other chromosome from that pair. This means that there are 8,388,608 possible variations of egg and sperm. It's really a wonder we look like our siblings at all. If you want to really understand how DNA code works, it works very similar to computer coding. In computers, everything is numbers, and a certain string of numbers encodes for a character or a text on a computer. DNA code is a string of 4 letters, A, C, T, and G, and different variations of these letters code for amino acids, which form proteins. Now, I don't understand computer coding really at all, and I don't think most people probably do, but it's a good way to generally explain how DNA actually works in the body. So now we're going to talk about SNPs. So what is a SNP and why is it so important? Well, to put it simply, we basically all have the same genes. We're 99% identical, which is crazy, right? But genes have a little bit of flexibility. When our cells replicate, there are many opportunities for basic gene errors, which are called SNPs, which stands for single nucleotide polymorphisms. What differentiates us from each other are these SNPs. Genes encode for proteins which direct the biochemical traffic in our bodies. SNPs are errors that occur which change the basic spelling of what the gene is trying to relay. So like instead of writing engaged with a C, it's writing encaged with a C. So it's changing the G and the C, which changes the context of the word, of course. So put it simply, a SNP is just a single letter in the genetic code that tends to vary between people. These changes aren't necessarily bad. In fact, they're seen so commonly that in people that one SNP is unlikely to have much of an effect on health at all. This is why we need to look at groupings of SNPs within our genes and compare those to trends and research to determine how they relate to health and well-being. SNPs are useful precisely because they vary between people so much. This allows us to use them for lots of different purposes. DNA identity testing in forensics depends on each person having a unique genetic fingerprint. Ancestry testing is possible because people in similar populations tend to have similar SNPs. The more closely related two people are, the more SNPs they will have in common. And this is how paternity testing works. Again, you can compare SNPs to computer coding, or even compare it to when you're reading something and one letter difference can change the meaning of a word. Many times our brains can adapt and may not even notice subtle changes or misspelled words. It's like using the context of the paragraph to figure out that misspelled word. However, if you have many of those changes occurring, it may become difficult to read and interpret a paragraph. The same thing happens with our DNA. Slight changes may not make a difference, but numerous changes, or those changes repeated over and over, may make a difference to how our body processes the information that the gene is trying to tell the body. So here's a few definitions, just real quick. Genes, what they are made up of DNA again, and provide the instructions to make proteins, which are the building blocks for the body. The term nutrigenetics or nutritional genetics is basically the effect of gene variations, so those gene SNPs, on nutrient absorption, utilization, and requirement. So basically, it's how well that nutrient that you are eating is used and utilized in the body. Nutrigenomics or nutritional genomics is the investigation of how nutrients and bioactive compounds that are in the food that we eat interact with our genes to affect our health. This is a part of epigenetics that we will talk about in a later session. So more to come on that. And then culinary genomics is uniting the science of genomics and cooking, preparing and serving specific nutrient-rich foods to trigger specific genes to turn on or off and to promote overall health. And so that's a lot of what I'm doing. So just real quickly, genetic mutations and genomic variations. These terms often get used interchangeably, but there's a difference between the two of them. Genetic mutations often refer to mutations that we look at birth. These are things like inborn errors of metabolism. These are severe, and genetic counselors are usually involved from the start when you're a baby to address these types of issues. These are very rare. They occur in less than 1% of the population, and these cannot be modified by diet or lifestyle. However, genomic variations is completely different. Like I said, we all have SNPs, and most are modifiable by diet and lifestyle. And we all have variations of these SNPs. They are common and have potential for disease depending on your diet, lifestyle, and environment. So they are definitely modifiable by nutrition and your lifestyle and how you live your life. A series of SNPs or gene errors in one pathway can subtly impact health. I am looking at a specific group of SNPs or variations in your DNA that give me clues as to what nutrition or lifestyle changes could impact your health. This is a polygenic approach, meaning I never look at one SNP or variation. I look at the entire picture and the grouping of the SNPs or variations in the DNA, as well as comparing it to what else is going on with the entire person's DNA. Looking at the biochemistry and coming up with a roadmap to each individual person. Gene expression equals genes plus the environment. Most genes do not express in isolation. There has to be a trigger to make them express. So we'll go into more about this in some of the later sessions. So there are various ways a SNP or a gene error will affect our health. One way it can do so is by causing a bottleneck of a nutrient. So basically, certain gene variations can basically decrease the amount of a nutrient that is available to do its job. The good news is that we can use this information along with the knowledge of biochemistry to utilize nutrition and lifestyle strategies to either increase the efficiency of a nutrient or to decrease that bottleneck, basically to bring metabolism back to normal by upregulating or downregulating genes. So that is the end of this first lesson. Just to kind of summarize, genes tell the story of you and only you. Genes are inherited from your parents, 50% from your mom and 50% from your dad. There are over 8 million different possible combinations of genes that you inherit from your mom and dad. These SNP variations are what makes us all unique. SNPs are not life-threatening. We all have hundreds of SNP variations. We always look at groups of genes together to tell the story, never just one individual gene. And we can use your genetics to help personalize nutrition guidance for health and wellness improvements. So in session 2, we are going to basically talk about what an evolutionary mismatch means and what that looks like, the significance of gene variations in relation to health risk, and learn how we know which gene variations influence which diseases, I'm sorry. So that's it for today, and we will catch you next time.